sowing our laden store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion, and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
Let us join in a spirit of meditation, reflection, or prayer as we deepen into our service and share our opening words this morning. They are a part of a reading entitled The Holy Work of Showing Up by Ashley Horan, Organizing Strategy Director of the Unitarian Universalist Association. You are loved beyond belief. You are enough. You are precious. Your work and your life matter, and you are not alone. You are a part of a we, a great cloud of witnesses, living and dead, who have insisted that this beautiful, broken world of ours is a blessing worthy of both deep gratitude and fierce protection. Our ancestors and our descendants are beckoning us, compelling us onward toward greater connection, greater compassion, and greater commitment to one another and to the earth. Together, we are resilient and resourceful, enough to say yes to that call, to make it our life's work in 1,000 different ways, knowing that we can do no other than bind ourselves more tightly together and throw ourselves into the holy work of showing up again and again, to be part of building that world of which we dream, but which we have not yet seen.
Our chalice lighting words today honor the people of Ukraine and wherever there is resilience and resistance. The reading is entitled Giving Voice to Mourning by Reverend Linda Susan Ulrich, minister at the Unitarian Society of New Haven, Connecticut. Give voice to sorrow and fear, the racking sobs at family betraying family, the shock at the chasm separating neighbors. What will you do in the days ahead, one asked. Hiding in an attic, another replied, her eyes as wide and dark as Anne Frank's. Already the assaults on bodies have launched, already hatred has been emboldened, already graffiti has defaced stone walls, already harassment of the other has begun when someone announces they're coming for you. Your worry doesn't spring from paranoia. It's based on evidence of history. Give voice to denial and bargaining, claustrophobic panic, desperate for a way out, clinging to any path that might alter the outcome. Where we live will be okay, one says. Who do you mean by we, another asks. You suppress a disorienting sense that you've fallen into the opening of a dystopian novel, calming yourself that everything must turn out okay because the narrator is alive to recount the tale, ignoring the blankness of the next page. Give voice to anger and rage that truth and kindness mattered so little that vitriol poisoned the community well. They will try to use your goodness against you, one said, and relying on your reasonableness to accept the unacceptable, another added. Retain your goodness and your reason, but always keep sight of the larger picture and the deeper values calling to you. Let your passion for justice burn, but not consume. Give voice to acceptance and hope. This is where we are. This is our new reality. For some, one said, the world we awoke to on November 9th was not much different than the one we'll be living in, except, said another, that more people were woke to it. Already organizing is taking place. Already creativity and solidarity are sending out tendrils. Already resistance and resilience are storing themselves up. Already signs of love are picking up speed. When someone announces they're coming for you, you find your people, you find your fearlessness, and you don't let go.
Before we hear the story for all ages, we'd like to share a short poem and some photographs that set the stage for today's sermon. The poem is called All of Us Are Beautiful, and it's by Thomas Rhodes, with photographs by Lori Brian Larson.
All of Us Are Beautiful by Thomas Rhodes. We come in a variety of colors and shapes and sizes. Some of us grow in bunches, some of us grow alone. Some of us are cupped inward, and some of us spread ourselves out wide. Some of us are old and dried and tougher than we appear. Some of us are in bud. Some of us grow low to the ground. Some of us stretch toward the sun. Some of us feel like weeds sometimes. Some of us carry seeds sometimes. Some of us are prickly sometimes. Some of us smell, and all of us are beautiful. What a bouquet of people we are.
Our program this morning is the second of 4 sermons of the month, a series for small congregations offered by the Mid-America region of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Today's sermon is delivered by the Reverend Sharon Dittmar. Reverend Dittmar graduated from Harvard Divinity School in 1997. She served 1 year as an interim minister of the Gathering at Northern Hills on the north edges of Cincinnati, and 18 years as minister at First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. Since 2016, she has served on the Congregational Life field staff with the Mid-America region. Her sermon today is entitled The Human Condition.
Good morning. My name is the Reverend Sharon Dittmar, and I want to share with you one of my favorite readings, Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. I have one foot larger than the other one. Actually, most of us do. You really aren't imagining it. You go to the shoe store, your left shoe fits, but the right one feels small. You wonder if the small one will stretch. You wonder what is wrong with the shoe. It's not the shoes. It's the feet. Our feet. They're not the same size. Human bodies are not symmetrical. Human minds are not perfect, infallible. We are all in process, being conditioned in our conditions to a condition. We are wholly human in a dazzling continuum of being and mortality. As a guest minister, I once preached a sermon entitled Dare to be Average. After the service, one man came up to me and needed, I would even go so far as to say, to argue with me that average was not commendable. It was not good. Where was my spirit of achievement, he asked. Where was my value for success? Where were my standards? Obviously, my sermon on the impossibility of perfection and the value of average had fallen short. I went home content. Our bodies are full of difference, and they continue to grow and change with age, time, and life. If we live long enough, there will be many adaptations, medications, therapy, perhaps even surgery needed for accident, injury, wear and tear. Our bodies are extraordinary in their divergence and beauty. The myth is that there is one standard of health, beauty, normalcy. The myth is that there is something better than average. It is the idea of normal that I find particularly frustrating, as is, I think, our limited understanding of average. Couldn't average just be the all of everything, that is average and normal? I have a friend who was born with spina bifida. Her spinal cord developed so that it did not close to the open air and was exposed then. I am sure her medical diagnosis at the time was full of words such as did not develop properly or normally, was not average, etc. But neither of those words, proper or normal, are factually true. Bodies develop in a myriad of ways. There is no proper. This is not setting a table. And as for normal, if spina bifida is a condition that happens, and it is, then it's normal. It's normal. Due to spina bifida, my friend uses a wheelchair, which is also normal. This problem is with society and the medical profession when it chooses to see any condition as abnormal. What if we lived in a society where we celebrated and designed for all variations and considered all of the variations average? The human condition includes a vast continuum of everything. It is only limited by our imagination and narration, the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. There are a lot of different sized feet out there, a lot of unavailable organs, missing hair, extra hair, different shaped bodies, different functioning brains. This is not a matter of perfection or failure, because failure and perfection, they're relative, limited notions, and just small parts of the all of human condition. We are so much broader and diverse than we know. And as the Mid-America Regional Assembly keynote speaker for 2022, CB Beal, who describes themselves as a white, fat, queer, non-binary religious and social justice educator, likes to say, everybody is already in the room. Whether we know it or not, everybody is already in the room because everything happens. Beal reminds us we are only limited by our notions of what is normative and our deceptions about our beautiful variety. I hope you will register for our assembly at www.uua.org/midamerica/RA/2022 to join the conversation on April 30th and learn more. Beal's comments remind me of the movie Sound of Metal, about a heavy metal drummer played by the actor Riz Ahmed, who goes deaf. The character he plays, Ruben, struggles with his growing deafness. With all his might, he fights himself, and in the process, he makes himself sick, isolated, and miserable. In the movie, we journey actually with Ruben as his body changes, and he learns new ways of communicating and living in silence, finally celebrating the peace it brings, which is the peace he discovers by embracing his body as it is, as he finds it, instead of it forcing it into the shape it once had. What if there's not a normal body, not a perfect body, not a proper body? What if all bodies are extraordinary and miraculous variations, and our work in society and as neighbors to one another is to find ways to embrace, assist, and include everyone. Some of you might have heard of the concept of universal design, designing products, buildings, and experiences so that they're accessible to everyone. Universal design relies on the theory that everybody is already in the room, or on the street, or in the home. So how do we design for everyone? There are curb cuts, for example, on streets to make it easier for strollers and wheelchairs and walkers. There's live transcription in Zoom rooms so that text can appear on the screen as a person speaks. In many ways, we are in the infancy of understanding universal design as a society. And so we're still learning. I know I am. It has taken me years to remember to enable live transcription. It's a little button at the bottom of your Zoom page if you're the host. It is new for me to ask questions and be curious about universal design. Questions like, how can I design a class to include the most people? Or what about this experience excludes somebody and what could be done to change that? And in including the most people, I'm not going for numbers. I'm going for the most diversity that will be in the room because everybody's always already in the room. These questions are more like conversations with continual learning. I'm not perfect in this work. I am extremely normal in this work because I'm human. I just try to learn because I care about all my neighbors, and I will be learning about and trying to practice universal design until the day I die. It is a journey, not a destination. And I'm actually grateful, very grateful to be on this journey. For me, it's a way to live my values. I recently spoke to a disability activist who wistfully wondered when people would just accept their human bodies as they are. This got me to wondering about how much I accept and celebrate my body just as it is. Truth be told, I'm doing a very moderate and maybe poor job at this, which is of course very human. I'm still wrestling with my newly gray hair, my wrinkles, my changing body, just as Reuben wrestled in The Sound of Metal. Though, since these changes do not involve my livelihood, I'm having an easier time than he was. I do, though, see myself struggling to celebrate the changes and where I find myself now. Sometimes I think of myself as old and not in a celebratory way, which I could choose to do. It is almost like in thinking about old as negative, I am creating and participating in a limited narrative and falling into that old habit, old familiar habit, of conceiving problems about something extremely normal and natural. Instead of complaining about my wrinkles or trying to hide them, what if I celebrated my journey of life? All that time I spent thinking about myself as too old, I could be celebrating or reviewing or looking back to decide how I want to be in the present moment. I am who I am. I'm 55 years old. There are many sunrises and sunsets, many adventures, stories in these lines, and they also provide me definition for who I want to be right now today. For me, as a white woman with privilege, I risk invisibility in our youth-focused society. Though I must say, truly, our youth don't want all the attention they get. I know I sure did not as a young person. And yet for other people with a variety of abilities and identities, say an elderly Black disabled woman in a wheelchair, the gauntlet of societal perception includes invisibility, ignorance, multiple microaggressions, and discriminations. What if we could just break away from right body, wrong body, perfect anything, and just be in love, just be curious, just appreciate, and just blessedly adapt. The poet Mary Oliver writes, "You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees. For 100 miles through the desert repenting, you only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine." I wish so much in this world that we could appreciate one another beyond just form and diagnoses, which can never fully describe the complexity, the moving beauty of every human story and life. No one here is just the sum of their diagnosis or form. We're that and so much more. I remember reading the book by clinical psychologist Annie Rogers, A Shining Affliction, A Story of Harm and Healing in Psychotherapy. It's really a remarkable and unique story about a woman who ended up teaching at Harvard. And I looked her up for the sermon. She's now teaching at Hampshire College in Massachusetts. It's just tremendous what she shares, which is a rare truth in a world that likes to have secrets. Annie begins her story with a description of her doctoral clinical internship at a site for emotionally disturbed children. She works with several children, but it is immediately drawn to one child in particular, Ben, who's about 5 years old. As she describes several play therapy sessions with Ben, we discover that he was a severely abused child left alone in a room until he was 18 months of life. He now lives with a loving adoptive family, but bears obviously the scars from his early years. And the scars are inside him and not visible to anyone on the outside. Ben is never a diagnosis, though, to Annie. So he is never a diagnosis for us, the reader. Annie is driven to uncover what is inside this bright, creative, hurt boy, what his story means to him, and to find a way to help him bridge into a good and loving world and family that waits for him. For the first time in his young life, Ben finally connects to someone who is Annie, and their play therapy is beautiful and magical. As the reader, we think this story is just going to be about Ben, right? Until Annie has a severe breakdown and is hospitalized. Her fall is intense, as are the repressed memories she recovers that render her unable to speak for a time. At one point, as Annie begins to move forward with a good therapist, she asks, "Do you think I will ever be cured?" After laughing quite some time, the therapist replies, "Annie, only ham gets cured. There is no cure. There is no cure for being who we are. Only living, loving, getting help with people who support us, and celebrating the human condition." Meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Whoever you are, wherever you are, you have a place in the family of things, just as you are, normal, varied, and beautiful in your own way. Celebrate yourself and your loved ones in your infinite beauty and mystery. May it always be so.
We will extinguish our chalice with the words, "The Work We Share," by the Reverend Trista Tawes from the UU Fellowship of La Crosse, Wisconsin. It is our work, shared with each other in covenant, that creates and sustains this beloved community. We extinguish this chalice, but its light lives on in the directions we have chosen today. The light of this faith lives on in us, together, in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits. Amen, and blessed be.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart, mind. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind, soul. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul.